ladies and gentlemen, everyone around and in between. It is DebateSensei CEDA edition. This is where we talk about things relevant to cross-examination debate. And this episode, we are talking with not only some current debaters, but a debate team that is setting themselves up for the Nationals and NDT to place very highly, if not win it all. All right. We have Diego Flores. Thank you, Diego, for being here. And Curtis Ortega. Thank you both. This is Long Beach OF, as they're commonly known in the circuit. Thank you both. Glad you're able to make it, Curtis. You're right in, slid right in there. That was great.
Yeah. Sorry about being a.
No need to apologize. Yeah, no apologies. It's fine. You're totally cool. Okay, so I get to ask y'all about your experience in debate, but at first, we got a lot of Long Beach love going on right now. I am an alum of the program in PDA, and it means a lot to me. I remember our policy team. We had David Peterson, or DP, as he was known. I don't know if he's still, because Devin talks about him all the time.
I have a funny story about DP. It's before me and Curtis met him at this year's NSDA that was held at Arizona for the high school kids, the national tournament. Okay. In high school, I used to read evidence that I cut from his articles about anti-blackness in debate.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's you.
Yeah. It's excellent. Okay. Well, let's get started on I want to hear the story about how each of you discovered debate. If discovery is a good term, I think so. But where did it all start for each of you? Why don't we start with Curtis? Go ahead.
I thought Diego was going to go first.
Oh,
yes. So I joined my debate team the second semester of my freshman year. I discovered debate just because the English teacher who I had at the time was the debate coach, and all the friends that I met just so happened to have joined debate by the time. And I was still kind of looking for that activity that most high schoolers find themselves in, whether it's music, art, sports, etc. Right. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And all my friends just kept bugging me. My English teacher kept bugging me since I always raised my hand in school, hey, you should come check out the debate team. I checked it out. The first ever time I walked in, they were sit down and read this card. Okay. And I was I don't know what I'm doing, and this is terrifying. I'm going to leave. But I stuck with it, learned a lot, met a lot of great people, and that's how I got integrated in debate.
Okay, what high school was this?
Humanities and Arts Academy. It's a small little high school on the campus of Narbonne High School.
Oh, Narbonne. Okay.
Yeah, South Bay. Yeah.
Okay. Diego, where'd you find it?
Yeah, I went to high school in Bravo High School. They already had a debate team for a while, and by the time I joined, I don't know, it was kind of unexpected for me. It was the same kind of story for Curtis, where it's I had an English teacher who was you got to come and sit down to this practice, because what happened was I was getting kicked out of a lot of the classes that I was in already. And they're just my English teacher was just since you like arguing so much, try using it to some benefit for yourself. And so I stuck around for a little bit just because that was my favorite teacher in the school. Shout out Ms. Diaz. And the issue for me was it wasn't the first day I learned how to read a card. I kind of just sat down just to hang out with some of my friends who were in the club. And by the time the tournament that was coming up had to start, somebody was looking for a partner, and they were well, you've been here for a little bit, so just be their partner. And on the bus is when I learned how to highlight cards, what a card even was. And in the round, I wasn't even using the card. I was just oh, we're talking about education and school lunches. This was the 2016 topic. I'm I hate my school lunches. Pass this plan, make the school lunches better. And I went 3-1. You feel me? Yeah. And then from there, I was just okay, this is kind of fun.
Okay. Oh my God. So, and Wait, what year was that? You said it, and I think I forgot.
Yeah, this was the 2016, 2017
But
topic.
your year, what were you
I
sophomore?
was a sophomore.
Okay, and so you were getting kicked out of classes due to arguing.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that makes sense. Then that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, tell me a little bit about your overall sort of experience in high school before we get into college. Like, I mean, and don't hold back. Like, awards. Like, what are you proud of, or what are some memorable moments?
Curtis,
Go
you
ahead,
want to go first? Or?
yeah. Go ahead, Diego. We'll switch back and forth. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. I mean, my overall experience in high school was pretty cool. I mean, me and Curtis both come from the same UDL, which is the Los
Okay.
Angeles Metropolitan Debate League. And so the way that me and Curtis got to experience debate is not through he's holding up a sticker. It's not through like a lot of invitationals that like most like national circuit students go to, but we mostly went to tournaments that were ran by Lambda themselves. And so we would only debate against other Lambda like debaters. And so I think we learned debate through a different way. We never really, at least in my experience, we never talked about nuclear war impacts too much. A lot of the affirmatives that Lambda gave us talked about issues that mostly like came from our background. So for example, in my first year of debate, we didn't really talk about like, oh no, China's revisionist, things are going to happen like,
Right.
that are really bad. It was stuff about like school lunches for the sake of our health. It was things about trying to figure out how to desegregate schools post like the Brown v. Board decision, etc. So I think we learned debate through a very different way. The thing that I'm most proud of is that for me, I didn't know what the TOC was or like what the national circuit was until like way later into my senior year of high school. And so my goal was just to make it to the national tournament for the UDLs, and that was known as the Urban Debate National Championship that's hosted by Noddle. And my senior year is when I finally got there, so that was pretty cool for me. But yeah, that was my experience. I spent 3 years of doing it. That was education, immigration, and the arms sales topic. They were really great years of debate, and then now I'm in college doing college debate.
All right. Hey, Curtis, so were you in like the same year? Were you hitting each other? You were in the were you debating against each other?
Thank God, no.
Oh,
I am 2 years younger than Diego. So when Diego was a senior in high school, I was a sophomore. So interesting story that like I'll tell about like me and Diego a little later. But my high school experience was kind of similar to Diego's. When I first joined debate, I didn't debate right away, unlike him. I kind of just sat there and watched lots of tournaments when I was growing up, or not growing up, I guess just like growing up in debate, I guess. And I didn't end up debating until the city championships for our league, which is Lambda. And somebody who I was friends with for a super long time, shout out Destiny Popoka, friends with her since middle school. And she really, really wanted to get good at debate, but it's just like her partner just like was not putting as much effort. And by the time the tournament came around, she was kind of just like, well, I don't really have a partner and I want to do really good because like I've been going like 1-3-2-2 at these tournaments and you've been here for a pretty long time. We're like best friends. It only kind of makes sense. So reluctantly, I was like, okay, we'll try it. And we were in the novice division and we ended up making it all the way to finals. And losing to Andrew Subi. Shout out Andrew. And that's how I got started. Just like Diego, I didn't know that the national circuit existed. I never went to any invitationals in high school just because I feel like for some reason my mind was kind of just like disconnected from the national circuit. Looking back on it, I wish I did invitationals. I wish I went to other debate camps, but I think I was just more so focused on getting good in Lambda first before I even thought about like nationally competing. Won a couple of like division like championships like throughout school, or I guess like throughout debate in high school. But I think I appreciate the debates that I had within Lambda, and I feel like those would have been more important for me. Just like than competing nationally, I guess. But I think those are some of the achievements. Just won a couple of division tournaments, but nothing too crazy.
Nice.
Wait, what's the story you have, Curtis?
Yeah. That's the follow-up. for sure.
Oh yeah. So Diego tells his story a lot of times, but basically just like not to gas him up or tune his whole horn a little bit, but Diego was pretty popular his senior year just because he was doing so well. Him and Jackie, shout out Jackie, his debate partner at the time.
Yeah.
They were pretty like prevalent in the league, and Diego was somebody who everybody was like asking for advice for. And I remember going to varsity, I was like, hey, like, I have a few questions about debate, like some things that, you can help me out with. And Diego, I don't remember the story being told this way, but apparently I came up to Diego and I was just like, yeah, all these chaos, man, just like destroying the activity, like, what do you say against them, And he kind of looked at me like, no, you're on the right track, but like, this is what you should say. Maybe not that, but so, yeah, it's kind of how like, I got a lot of good advice from Diego. He judged me throughout my senior year a lot, so that's how we kind of like got into
it. Okay. So I mean, you're saying that you're 2 years off. Is that the 2 years still represented in your classes right now? Okay. So what years are you in right now in college?
So I'm a senior in college right now. I'm going to graduate after this semester. I'm majoring in poli-sci sociology. I don't know if that's relevant, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And what's the goal afterwards, after graduation?
After graduation, I got accepted into Teach for America, so I'm going to be a high school teacher when I graduate.
And now Teach for America, they're just going to kind of send you anywhere? Do you know where you're going?
So I'm definitely going to be teaching English, but I don't know if I'm going to be teaching middle school or high school. So that's something that I'm trying to figure out right now. That's something that I figure out when like the interview process starts. Right. But for right now, I'm just in the process of getting the English credential itself.
Okay. So that puts you as a sophomore, Curtis.
Yes.
All right. What are you majoring in?
So I'm majoring in Africana studies right now.
Cool.
Hopefully am able to do Teach for America or some teaching program like Diego. I'm still waiting for him to give me the little shout out inside of his organization to give me a shot. So, but yeah, that's the goal as well.
I mean, it seems like that you'd be a shoe-in for it. I mean, like people, like they need people, right? I mean, that's what my understanding is. So how did both of you end up at Cal State Long Beach? Let's start with Diego. Go for it.
Yeah. So I ended up in Cal State Long Beach simply because my senior year, there were like two schools that I wanted to go to for debate, and it was Cal State Northridge, and then it was Wake Forest University.
Yeah,
it was Wake Forest University just because like by the time I was a senior, they were primarily known for being like, if you like doing like K-debate, they're like the school to go to because they were constantly having like the top K-debaters in the nation at the time, and still now. Maybe not now because me and Curtis are ranked higher, but that's just me. Anyways, the reason I wanted to go to Cal State Northridge is because one of my like mentors at the time, Joel Amule, was there, and I'm just like, he helped me a lot during Lambdal, and I wanted to go over there. But things changed, and the way that changed is because I went to go spectate at like a couple years ago during February, the District 1 qualifiers to the NDT. And right there is when I saw Devin and all the other coaches coaching their teams. And the way that Devin recruited me is he grabbed me by my shirt, pulled me into a room, and he's just like, so you're coming to Long Beach, right? and I was like, well, I don't know. Y'all rejected me or y'all waitlisted me. So what's up? And he's just like, it's okay. I'll give you some money. And then, I got accepted. So that's the way that I found my way into Long Beach. It wasn't my first debate school, but after learning everything about Long Beach, I'm like, you know what? I'm persuaded. Let's do it,
Okay, well, now you speak of Devin, and he just stepped into the backstage. And Devin, you mind jumping in right now? Okay, here we go. There he is. Yeah, excellent. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're
welcome. Hello.
Excellent. All right. So we were just getting into how they ended up at Long Beach. And so Diego said that you were very instrumental in that. Do you remember that meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I do.
Okay. And so you were at You were doing some Lambda work. Were you judging? Like, how'd you know Diego? How'd you meet him?
Yeah, because I would judge more frequently when
Okay.
I first got to Long Beach, but then things intensified, so I can only judge as much as I'm available, and when we host for them. So
Okay. Curtis, how did you end up at Cal State Long Beach?
So similar to Diego, I only applied to a few schools my senior year. Don't know why. Looking back on that, probably is a bad thing not to do. I encourage students to apply to as many universities as possible. I only applied to like 4. Don't know what's going on in my head, but use it as a learning moment. And Cal State Long Beach was one of the schools I think the school I wanted to go to the most, just because it's closer to home than any other university near me. I live in the South Bay area, so Long Beach is just a hop skip away. And also just knowing that somebody like Devin was the director over there at the time, it seemed like the only school I was really interested in going to, just because of the debate community I heard was being built over there, but also it being so close to home, also it being near the beach, and just lovely weather, lovely environment. It's like something I used to live in Long Beach when I was little, so something that just like really resonated with me. So it felt like the right fit. Honestly, I don't think anything would have fit better at all.
All right. Well, Devin, it seems like you've been pretty instrumental in building this team right here.
trying to build people after them.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this the first year the two of you are a team? This is your second year? Okay. Well, excellent. How was last year? What happened? Just give me the lowdown.
Diego.
I mean, last year I remember. Jesus, the first time we met, like just to be a team, was also just we have a weird story about that too. It's like
Let's go for it.
Yeah, the team room on campus at Long Beach had not been like touched for months, and I'm not gonna go into directly what we found, but we just found some nasty stuff in there.
Oh
We
man.
were just like, wow. Okay, let's get to prepping. You feel me? So then it's like the first time I think a lot of our prep before the season kind of got tossed out the window, and the reason is because we actually worked for months on both of our positions. Curtis had like a master file, like months work of just settler colonialism, like just
Right.
done, and then I had at least 2 new affirmatives ready to go for the Northwestern tournament, and for both things, from the 2 new apps, then was like, nah, write about something else. And I had to write the main app that we used for the entire season, like on the plane. And the 2AC wasn't even done until like round 1 of the tournament. that was crazy. And then for Curtis, he had to dump out most of it to write other stuff focused on Black Rage. And that was another journey in and of itself. So I don't know if Curtis wants to talk about that.
No, I feel like that encapsulates pretty much everything at this point. So yeah.
Okay, so the season started off as a mad dash. Did it feel like a mad dash for the entire year?
Kind of. So it's like our first tournament, we didn't do too well. I think that was the tournament, I believe, where we didn't break. So we went 3-3 at Northwestern. But then after that, we did a lot better after that first tournament.
Well, like one tournament where you don't break, like that ain't bad.
Yeah, and I remember my goal for last season was I was just coming off of a year-long break from debate. So it's like prior to that, my sophomore year, I didn't debate at all. And my junior year is when I decided like I just wanted to come back and try it out again. And my goal that year was just to like at least break at every single tournament. It was more to just like get back in the groove of things. And then this year would be the year that I get like a first round, like be recognized as a top 16 team in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that just because me and Curtis were like really passionate about succeeding and making sure that it's like at whatever tournament we went to, regardless of how well we did, we try to make sure we put all of our effort there. I think our success came a lot faster than we anticipated. And I think that was the same reaction that a lot of the circuit had.
Really?
Yeah, it's like I don't think too many people expected that we would do as well last year, but we did. So
very nice. All right, I'm gonna pose a question first to Devin, and then I want to get like your reactions to it. Would you say, Devin, that they have different roles on the team, and how would you describe those different roles?
I think that both of them are folks that are really trying to influence like the younger debaters. I think that Diego is seen as less approachable because people see him as like this golden child, and Curtis just like talks to everybody. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing? How you doing? What's going on?" Right? And so I think that that's kind of how it exists, because I think both of them, like, I think you gave up your role as president, Diego. um, so I think that at this point, it's just like I mostly delegate them to work with younger students as well as like people who are coming into policy, so that they can start to facilitate like more communal stuff, because our policy team is probably going to grow quite a bit here. I mean, because there's even transfer students that are coming in that might want to do policy debate. So I think that's kind of like what their roles are. And like, I think Curtis is seen as more of a jokester, very, very social. And Diego's like more serious a lot, but still social and jokester. But Curtis is a lot more.
All right. So, like, reactions, Curtis, why don't you go first?
I think that's like 100% accurate. I think just like I'm very social, and I feel like I always have been. So debate can be pretty serious sometimes. So you know, it's always nice to get like some jokes and laughter in, because I always just say it's like debate is very stressful, but like it's supposed to be fun at the end of the day, you know. So like debate without fun kind of sucks. So I kind of like, you know, joking around, like making people laugh, etc. Diego is like can definitely be like very like straight face serious sometimes, which is why people probably like don't feel like they can approach him, because they always think he's in like game mode, like super on focus, like cannot be bothered. But like Diego, like deep down, is just like he's very silly, and a lot of people don't know that about him. So I think that's like pretty accurate from Devin.
I've gotten that a little bit though. Like when I'm in a new environment, especially where I'm just kind of trying to figure things out, I've gotten that feedback where he's like, you look a little too serious, or you look, and then people start thinking you're stuck up or something like that. I'm like, oh, come on now. Diego, what do you think about this feedback on your role in this group here?
No, I mean, I think it makes sense. I feel like usually when I head into the team room, I just have like limited time most of my days, and so it's like when I'm in the team room, I'm just kind of like focused on prep stuff. Even though I don't like do too much in terms of like actual prepping in the room, my mind is just like strategy, you know?
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe that's what throws people off. But I like that's not to say like I'm not friends with people on the team.
Yeah, of course.
The whole stuff about like stepping down as president, I did that just because it's like last year I was president and I felt as though I just wasn't committing to that president role. I was more so like I was committed to my stuff, like me and Curtis's success. And then it's like if I was needed for other things, then I would be there, but that it wasn't necessarily as outgoing as a president should be. And so I was just like, I'd rather step down and let somebody else take that role because I'm not fulfilling it. And so I think that's sort of I like that role that I'm in, where it's like if Devin tells me like the people like in the novice or JV division need a file like an AF or a critique, then I'm there to help cut it and like try and explain the arguments to them. But I don't think like I should be in that role where it's like I am president. That's just not the role that I'm there to fulfill, in my opinion.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So if you're, that's a good way to transition to like this year, right? You said your mind's always on strategy. So what would you say, like if you had one way to describe the overarching strategy that you're using to approach this year, how would you describe that?
I mean, so being that this is my last year, I think that whenever I approach stuff on the app side, I think it's more so just like, what do me and Curtis like to talk about and how can we best like put it in the topic? So for me, it's like I really like and like talking about the topic through a perspective of like migrant literature and how to include undocumented immigrants and how they relate to the topic. It's been a bit difficult with nuclear weapons, but I think that Devin steered me in the right approach about talking about nuclear war as a metaphor for other things. So it's like viewing the border itself as a nuclear weapon. And then it's like once I started doing more research, I found out that the same companies like responsible for building the border are the same ones responsible for like building nuclear weapons. And so
Really?
that was kind of interesting. It's
Yeah.
not like the same companies themselves, but it's like think of like a mega corporation hiring up the same companies, and that company is doing the stuff. So that was pretty interesting to me, because then it makes me realize that it's like it's not necessarily like a metaphor just like symbolically, but things are always like interconnected. And there's a person who wrote a book on all this. Their name is Ray Atchison, and they talk about how in order to forward abolitionist politics, you must realize every issue is interconnected, even though they may seem separate. So I think that was pretty interesting to uncover under this nuclear weapons topic for college. We're currently working, or we are already like running an Afrofuturism app that Curtis can talk about in a bit, because
I'd
like
love to hear that.
the main person behind it. So like Curtis, if you want to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, we heard what Diego likes talking about, and so the focus coming from Curtis would be a great perspective.
Yeah, so I feel like the way that I have particularly approached prep is sometimes like the NDT like CEDA circuit still feels like very new to me, because I feel like every day like I'm still like discovering like arguments that teams have like introduced in the past, things that people have been interested in where it comes to like performance literature or just like certain groups of literature. So I still feel like sometimes I'm like still learning about certain things. I think it's funny because I'll be like, "Oh, Devin, I found this," and Devin would be like, "This is played out. Do something new." That's fair, you know, that makes sense. So I feel like I'm still like sort of finding like what I particularly like to talk about. But I think something that I found interesting, and me and Devin kind of talked about in depth like all throughout this year, is certain aspects of like the metaphorical connections to nuclear war as well. So just reading a lot of like different articles and books, particularly Infrastructure of the Apocalypse by Jessica Hurley, who writes about nuclear war, not just from like perspective on the damage that the bomb costs, right? But the amount of damage that it brings when you think about how much money it takes to be invested into the nuclear industrial complex, what type of sacrifices, social programs, those things trade off with. So I think reading that book and discovering lots of the ways in which the nuclear industrial complex actually took away from the investment into Black and brown neighborhoods, how those neighborhoods were seen as unable to be invested in because people often, or at least like military reporters, always see places like Chicago, Los Angeles, like those urban, quote unquote, urban cities, are like are like the site for ground zero when the bomb attacks, right? So the government thinks that since these cities will be attacked first in the nuclear war, there's no reason to put money into them, right? Which is the exact reason why we see things like gentrification, disinvestment in housing, etc., into these Black and brown communities, which creates not only like a zone for sacrifice, right, but also apocalyptic type atmosphere, right, where it's like we see people who have already became or like overcome to the end of the world, right? So I think investing in those things and figuring out how we can tackle not only the issue of nuclear forces, but also tackle the apocalypse that Black and brown people have faced throughout like the Cold War era have been things that have been intertwined. It's something I've been like researching a lot when it comes to like the FDCA, which is just like the civil defense offices during the Cold War. And you're seeing like the interconnectedness between nuclear weapons and institutional racism and ways to tackle both of those things at the same time have been, I think, like my main focus when it comes to like this topic. I think those things are intertwined and provides good arguments, good debates. So yeah.
So these are fascinating aspects. Like I love how when you're describing it, like things start snapping into focus. I'm like, yeah, you know, like you talk about the cost disparities and then how that trade-off happens from nuclear to it's cool. The complexity of these arguments, Devin, how do you keep up with it? What's the coaching strategy for a team that's trying to like be at the top level in this activity?
I mean, I think that you have to read. One of the major advices that I was given when I was a junior in college, which I wish I got earlier, was from Tony Nielsen. And she was just like, "Sugar, you need to read till your eyes bleed." Right. And so I was just like, wow, that's a lot. But, I think that reading and knowing your framing of your argument through every discipline is something that is important, because if you don't know how your argument looks in different disciplines, then you're not able to answer when people make arguments from that discipline. And so, it's one of the examples I always talk about is that there was a team from Harvard that used to read queer theory and debate when I was debating. And so like a lot of people were having a hard time answering that were people of color. And so I went and I was just like, I'm going to find something that answers this. And so I went and looked up like authors that talked about like Black queer stuff. And then that's when I arrived to the Black Queer Anthology by E. Patrick Johnson. And literally the book answered almost everybody that Harvard was reading, especially Eve Sedgwick. And so it was just like amazing. And so that's why I tell them, like, you have to know about your arguments in the environmental context, the economic context, the religious context, like all these different contexts. You have to have some knowledge about that. I mean, but also the other thing too is that like I think that other people's arguments are, you need to discount them and say that they're not as important. Like, I mean, they have something good to offer, on the table, but are they doing those arguments in a way that is consistent? Are those arguments taking account for different structural inequalities that exist outside of them? And are those arguments ones that are really like connected to a broader political strategy or stance, I guess?
All right. Well, this has been awesome. I love this sort of energy and the information and just getting to know some people from, I'm coming up on 20 years since I graduated from the graduate program at Long Beach, and I'd love to see what's happening over there. Diego, Curtis, Devin, thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank you.